I did then want to talk about one player that we know that will be staying at Liverpool, and that's Virgil van Dijk, who, in the time since we've spoken, he signed a new 2-year deal with Liverpool. And that now means that Van Dijk and Salah have both decided to stay at Anfield beyond this season. And this is surely a sign of the club's ambition, isn't it? To keep two players who are arguably the best players in the world in their respective positions and to keep them for at least another 2 years. This is really, really positive for Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it smashes the myth, and it is a myth that FSG in some way kind of struggled to keep hold of the top talents. I mean, we are talking about, he's up there as one of the top 5 attackers of his generation, Mo Salah. So, that these are really, really hard to come across. And then Virgil van Dijk, possibly the best centre-half ever. And Liverpool have not only signed them, but kept them for basically the entirety of their top-level careers. So, if anyone questions Liverpool's ambition or the ambition of the owners, I think they are two really good examples of that. And they get paid an awful lot, by the way. They're really well remunerated. So, I think that kind of shows you that ambition is there. And as you say, I think it says something about where the team's going, that both players were absolutely desperate to stay as well. They think that good things are coming in the future as well. So I think it sends a sign, and it's really, really positive. And I also think it puts a floor on what Liverpool's next season will look like as well, which is, I think is a real positive.
What would that floor be for you? Would you say that guarantees them two staying guarantees a Premier League title charge, a Champions League run? Because obviously we don't know what will happen with Trent, but with those two staying, you'd say perhaps they probably are Liverpool's two most important players.
I'd say it guarantees top 3 as a minimum. And then what happens beyond that, so many other factors, aren't there, in terms of injuries, how City respond, how Arsenal come back. We'll have to see in terms of that. I think you could think that they would probably be in a title charge to a decent degree. The problem is with kind of predicting that is that you can have a kind of injury hit first half of the season, and after the first 10 games, you're already out of it, really. So it may never turn into a title charge. But I'd say I do think it gives them a minimum outside of something crazy happening of finishing within the top 3. So guarantee of Champions League football. So that's a really good basis to start from, isn't it? And if you know that that's your basic level there of finishing in the top 3, then it gives you every chance with the right signings, which I think is important. They're going to have to replace a few important members of this squad come the summer. If they get those right, then and they get the little bit of luck you always need to be in a title charge, then yeah, you'd say there's every chance that they will be involved in that mix. But as I say, it's putting that floor on things and not feeling like this side has the potential to drop out the Champions League, which I think if you'd have lost Mo Salah and you'd have lost Virgil van Dijk and then Trent in the same window and had to somehow replace them, there's so many question marks over the squad then and what you'll get delivered in terms of goals, in terms of your defending, in terms of your leadership, in terms of creativity. There would have been too many question marks there to say there was any guarantee about where Liverpool would finish. But as I say, I have a strong feeling that top 3 at a minimum for next season.
Well, it's not a bad place to start with. But I did want to ask you whether you think that Van Dijk and Salah, whether you think that they can remain the best players in their positions over the duration of their contracts and potentially beyond, because we don't know how long they're going to stay at Liverpool for. And I guess the best examples would be, you've mentioned Ronaldo with Salah. I guess perhaps you'd mentioned Thiago Silva, who played in Premier League at the top level for a long time. So do you think maybe they can even go one step better than them and have even better careers later into their 30s?
Yeah, I think it's easier to predict that you will, for the next 2 years, still see Van Dijk at his same level, because I think with defending, it's a little bit easier to do that. I mean, he barely has to sprint around the pitch anyway. So the fact if he loses even a yard of pace, I don't think you'll notice it, because his reading of the game is so good. And he doesn't look much slower now anyway. So I'm not seeing that physical decline in him. But I think with defenders, it's much easier to mask because they just get smarter. And he's so good in every other aspect of the game as well. So with Van Dijk, I think you can guarantee. But your concern is with attackers that it does feel like a cliff edge sometimes, and they do drop off suddenly. So you really hope with Salah that we're not going to see that. And I mean, the way he looks after himself, his professionalism is absolutely second to none. So that is a real bonus in terms of that. So again, it gives you real confidence. I think we'll probably not see a season like this in terms of the numbers of goals and assists, because this is absolutely freakish what he's doing. But again, as a kind of baseline for him, you just think going into next season, he will be Liverpool's top goal scorer. I think you're going to get that as a minimum. And then, we'll see what happens in terms of any decline with him over the next couple of seasons and whether that happens. But I still think, like I say, I think next season at a minimum, he will be top goal scorer. And then we'll see where he goes after that. But I still think, regardless, it was a sensible decision to sign him up, because I think there's a lot of change coming in a lot of areas for Liverpool, and to take out your top scorer and have to somehow replace that for next season would have been absolutely crazy. So even if there is a little bit of decline with him, I think it's something that Liverpool will accept and will be able to wear a little bit, particularly if they get the signings around him in that attack right, which they absolutely have to, by the way.